Welcome back to the Virtual Shakeup, and this session is about everything you need to know about running engaging online events. And you've been using the product already, which is Slido. It's the market leader for polling and interaction, or as they say, audience interaction made easy. So I'd like to welcome Uri from Slido, who is the Chief Meeting Designer. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about how you design meetings, and also a little bit later on, Nadia. Over to you.
Ralph, thank you so much for such a warm welcome, and welcome everybody to our session. And as Ralph gave you all a heads up, today we'll be talking about the hottest topic there is out there in the events industry, and that is audience engagement. And before we actually get down to that topic, let's put up the slides over here. If we can do that, it would be great. Perfect. Great. So as I mentioned today, we will be talking about the hottest topic that is out there. Everybody is talking about how to bring people more into the event, how to engage them, how to interact them with a little bit, how to interact with them, right? So how to bridge that connection. So we would like to know more. We would like to hear more from you. How would you rate the quality of virtual engagement this year? Probably you have managed to attend a lot of events or even organized. But what do you think? Where do we actually stand on the quality of the audience engagement so far this year? And I can see that we've got 12 votes coming through. Perfect. So if you want to participate, just go to the right-hand side panel and just click on the polls and Q&A, actually tab, and that's where you can cast your vote. And we would love to hear from you, and we will be engaging with you throughout this session. So once you are going to get in there, it's going to be easier for the rest of the session. And we can see that it's slightly above the average. Currently, we are scoring 5.8. Which is not bad, not terrible, as they say, right? It's pretty well distributed. On the right-hand side, we've got some experienced people that voted 8 or 9, but overall, we've got a pretty average rating over here. And let's just take a quick step back. And I believe that we can confidently say that 2020, among other things, has been the year of online meetings and events. And perfect. And we have all gone through an incredible transformation as the industry. Just watching the show reel in the moments before we opened up this session just blew my mind, right? And we grew so much, and it was not just the events industry that grew, but also companies and individuals that organized these virtual meetings. And this is the picture of us, actually myself moderating our very first virtual offsite. And instead of bringing 150 team members together for 2 days of socializing and business updates, we had to take it all to the online space. And funny enough, it was the best rated offsite that we have ever hosted. But it didn't come. It didn't come together on its own, right? We had a number of challenges that we were facing as we were putting this together. And I'm sure you have encountered a number of challenges when planning an online event, and we want to hear from you again. And this is another engagement point, another interaction point. So, what is your biggest struggle when planning an online event? What causes you the headache? Or did you already nail it and you don't have any struggles? Or the struggles changed, right? So please let us know. Over here, you just have to type in. It's another multiple choice. So knowing how to invite, generating delegate revenue, networking, having people to actually show up, definitely. Engagement, engaging the audience. Yes, so you have come to the correct answer. Technical challenge. Obviously, like we have to juggle a lot of tools at the same time. And as you can see, I've got just the tools even right now, right? Juggling, not mentioning all the setup that Nadia was doing fantastically before. Cool. Monetization tools, knowing who to invite. Perfect. But expertise, great. We also saw that some of you are really struggling with the engagement or with the interaction in general. And this is the right session. We are going to share a few tips with you just in about a second. And let me just give a very quick reminder of who we are. My name is Juraj Holuben. I'm the Chief Meeting Designer, and I help our clients to organize better, more engaging events and meetings. And I'm very excited to be today here with my colleague, Nadia. Nadia, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Juraj. So since the session will be mostly about engagement, don't forget to ask your questions. Again, it's on the right-hand side. If you're watching the live stream, just go to the Q&A and live polls tab. Great, so without further ado, let's take a look at some interaction tips. Tip number 1, set the mood with music. If you're running a conference or even a webinar, don't be afraid to start 5 or even 10 minutes early and play some music to your audience. This will allow you to avoid the awkward silences and set the right tone. And also, you will bring the community together right from the start. So here's how it works in Zoom. All you need to do is to share computer sounds, and many other tools have this option as well. Just make sure that you have the copyrights to play the music. And if you have some musical colleagues, friends, or family, you can also invite them to play some tunes live. So these are actually 2 of our colleagues who were, playing some songs. So you can also leverage the fact that we're all online and they can jump and help you with that. Or, of course, you can also hire a professional. Tip number 2, chit chat with people as they're waiting. So I've seen that Heather used this very same poll at the beginning, and it's so exciting to see all these people joining from different countries and even continents. And as they say, right now in year 2020, we all learned that the Earth is the stage. And you can even take it one step further. At one time, we've seen a moderator who was actually greeting people in their native languages, which was pretty cool. So really don't be afraid to create this really strong sense of community right at the beginning. Tip number 3, have a co-host. As you have seen, it's the 2 of us here on this call, and we really wouldn't have it any other way. Not only because it's really comforting to know that there's somebody else in case the tech fails you. This was the biggest challenge according to you, so the tech difficulty, but also most importantly, it helps you break the dynamic. So having the 2 of us, and also especially if we're doing live engagement, is always handy. Right. And again, I want to step back and take it over to you and ask you a question. What's the weirdest thing you've done during an online meeting or event? So yes, we've been at many Zoom meetings or Microsoft Teams meetings. We've attended plenty of webinars. So let us know what you have been up to while attending some of those live or online events and webinars. Right, so 40% of you don't want to share this information with us. So you're very secretive. And then 25% of you baked some bread. I'm actually guilty of this as well, and I failed miserably. Walked my dog. Okay, somebody was helping their kids with their homework. Perfect. Okay, somebody was even taking shower. It seems like all of the options are getting votes. So as you can see, we're all guilty of multitasking. And Juraj, let's hear from you.
Thank you so much, Nadia. And I am guilty of multitasking as well. I think the craziest thing that I've done on an online meeting or an event, actually, I was completely undressing and changing my attire. So at a certain moment, I was just walking around the apartment only in the boxers with the camera off, I promise. But I was in a great rush to meet my friends outside. I know, but I was just paying attention to have the camera off just to do that. Great, thank you so much for sharing your secrets with us. And coming back to what Nadia said, right? So these are some of the tips that you can use to kick off and engage people right off the bat, right? Whether it's the music or a chit chat or just some kind of easy icebreakers, whether it's a webinar or online meeting. But the critical part over here is that you have to keep on re-engaging people. And ideally, as much as every 5 to 7 minutes. I know that it might sound like a lot, but just imagine, like, if you are in the room, you are able to read the facial expressions, right? You are able to get that physical feedback from people, but this is completely non-existent outside of the use of of the technology. And obviously, like, the polls could be a great help over here. And I'm going to give you 3 examples from the virtual events that they used it really well. And the first one is, you can start a session or event with a thought-provoking poll question. And this is a polling question that has been truly asked at the medical conference. And it's a rather provocative one. If you take a look at the top of that blue screen, was COVID-19 engineer? And just keep in mind that you had hundreds of medical experts sitting in the audience. And 14% of them said that yes, they actually believe that it could have been engineered. And what it actually brings, the use of a polls, is that you can engage people, you can hear anonymous answers, and you can really tap into and reveal the stuff that you would never otherwise be able to reveal, right? And it's also a little bit of a thought-provoking question that you are asking people. And in case you are having a panel discussion or you are as a speaker, you can instantly comment on the results and tie it with the rest of the content. So thought-provoking question always works. Let's take a look at the second one. When we are organizing online events, it's not just the presenters who are the experts, but imagine you have tens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of experts joining from all across the world. And very often we do not really engage them enough. So again, the polls over here can help you learn what the audience thinks. This is an example from Euractiv event, and they were discussing, you know, the financial impact on the Europe and asking a question: if there were a Marshall Plan for Europe, which sector should it focus on? And as you can see, that there is a diverse range of opinions over here. So again, it highlights different perceptions, different perspectives, and if you really use it well and tie it with the content, it could be really a great way how to bring people together and re-engage them at all times. Number 3, obviously, we're organizing these events to teach something new to people, right? To inspire them. And it can be, the presentations can be like information heavy. So quizzes or the live polls can help you actually make the content stick. This is an example from the leading UK university, and they were running a webinar for actually thousands of people on the universe and on the evolution of the universe. And they were asking, what is the nearest big galaxy called, right? Most of people got it right, which is Andromeda. But again, it was not just a one-way broadcast, so to speak, but a two-way conversation. And the presenter was able to check whether people do understand the concept that he or she was actually presenting. Okay, so that was the third one, but over to you. We would like to find out, what is your experience with live polls, right? Live polls are becoming more and more prevalent, whether it's an inbuilt functionalities of many of the virtual event platforms, or just using a standalone solutions like Slido or many other that are out there, right? So let's take a quick look and quick pulse check on where you stand on the usage of live polling for engaging with your audience. And wow, this is encouraging. So about 44% of you say that yes, all the time. Okay, it's changing slightly. Yes, occasionally, 40%, but still, yes, all the time is pretty strong. Only 3%, 2% says never. Wow, so it's really becoming a method how to engage and connect with the audience. So hopefully the tips worked for you. And 15% said that no, not yet, but you would like to try it. So hopefully you found some inspiration over there. Thank you so much for letting us know. And Nadia, over back to you.
Yes, thank you, Ray. So now we've seen some examples how to play around with live polls. And at this point, let's take a look at the different event formats. Now, I know we're talking to event professionals, so this is nothing new. Experimenting with different formats has been with us forever. But what are some of the formats that can work really well, especially in the virtual setup? So in the next few slides, I'm going to share with you 3 tips that you can try at your next event. Tip number 1, you decide session. There's nothing more powerful than to give like steering wheel to your audience and let them control the event. So if you have a more flexible speaker, let them prepare 2 angles of the story. So as you can see on the screenshot here, the question was, what would like you, Anne, to talk about? Was it designing engaging experiences or your engagement strategy? And Anne could clearly see what was the vote, and she could then tailor her topic or session to the audience's needs. So this is really one of the cool ways how you can maximize the value out of the session. Tip number 2, run a virtual pep quiz. So this was like an incredibly popular use case during the lockdown, and also after the lockdown, pep quizzes really took over the world. This example is from Politico, who wanted to engage with their readers. So they sent an email, and the email was like, at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, get on the couch, get a pint of beer, and connect with us to see what are the latest business updates. So you can either run this as a standalone event, like Politico did, but you can also make it a part of your conference, which would be a fun way how to wrap things up. And tip number 3. Do you remember when we were able to meet in person and discuss stuff around the roundtables? Well, feel free to take this concept and try to copy it in the online world. And we did this at our remote offsite, as Juraj was mentioning at the beginning. And it's a really great way how to create intimate conversations and discuss more about the challenges or highlights. So some tips over here. Assign a topic to your breakout room. Leave enough time for people to discuss. And have 4 to 5 people per group. And this obviously varies based on the size of your event, but don't make it too big. Otherwise, some people might not feel comfortable speaking up. And as a facilitator, you can also hop from one group to another to discuss various insights.
Cool.
Okay, Juraj.
Thank you so much, Nadia. And let's just give you a few of the bonus tips and tools that you can use for your online meetings or online events. And this one comes very much in handy if you want to cap a certain session or a certain break, and we absolutely love this thing. We got an inspiration from our dear friend and the great facilitator JJ for this one, Janja Bindermauer, and it's called the Big Timer. So just type bigtimer.net. It's visually appealing, it's got a gong, it's got everything. So if you let people off for a break, you can just like flash this kind of a big timer, or if you have a brainstorming session with your remote team, just set 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or whatever your time frame is, and just measure it, and you will always be able to keep the track. We love using this big timer. It's fun and it looks beautiful. Let's take a look at the next one. Again, this is a tip from our friend JJ, the Wheel of Names. If you ask people for volunteers, who wants to start? You know what follows? Basically, you can just hear the dead silence, right? So the Wheel of Names is a small thingy that you can use to pick the first person to contribute. So just go to wheelofnames.com and you can type in the names of your participants or of your colleagues and just spin the wheel. Make sure to display it live so people can see the wheel spinning, and you build up that kind of an atmosphere of the tension. So it's a lot of fun, especially great stuff for the team meetings and the training session. So the second one is the Wheel of Names. And let's take a look at the third one. And if you think back to the live events, like we always took pictures of ourselves, right? At the end, throughout, and it definitely enforces the feeling that we experience something together. So why not to recreate the same thing in a virtual setup? So when you are nearing the end of your virtual event, and it is possible to do, obviously, ask people to turn on their cameras and take a group photo to wrap up your event or meeting. We do it every single time, almost every single time, when we are having all company offsite or all company all hands meeting or something like that. Again, this is a picture from the training session that we had. And on top of taking a group picture together, we had to just write one word that would describe the training that we've just experienced and show it to the camera. So you can really play around with these kind of things and to really boost the end of your event. But at the same time, as we saw in the first poll, we've got also some people who feel pretty confident about the current audience engagement. And we would like to find out and hear from you. How do you engage your audience? What tips, what tools do you actually use in order to do that, right? So we were saying that we are not the only experts. We've got tens of experts on this in this session, right? So please take a moment and type in, how do you engage your audience? Okay, ARS systems, live Q&A, pulse chat, cool. Yes, perfect. Let's wait for a bit. Ask to show a certain object like a cup on the camera. Definitely, that's a lot of fun. 100%. Polls, questions. At the end of the day, we will join in an open Zoom session called Overtime. Perfect. And we share how we feel about the conference so far. I love this idea. So you see, like, we learned something new, and that's something what our boss, like Peter, said to me once. Like, you're right. If you don't learn anything new as a presenter, you failed at your presentation. So we learned something new. Mentimeter, gamification, raising hands, Kahoot, virtual energizers, make good use of breaks and rooms, 100%. Mentimeter, pitches, interactive sessions, live energy moments. Cool. Perfect. Keep it coming.
I love it. I also seen a song division. So somebody is having like singing contest, which is quite fun. And you're right, like we actually had a virtual scavenger hunt with our team, as you're well aware. It was so much fun. Like we prepared a list of 20 stuff, and in 5 minutes, people had to bring it to the Zoom call. So really you can go, very creative, short questionnaires, live WeWork tours. That's amazing. I've seen that museums in London are actually doing live tours that are virtual. So amazing. Thanks so much for all these tips. We'll make sure to share it with you after the call so we can get mutually inspired music, virtual team buildings. Perfect. Thank you so much. So I've seen the Q&A mentioned in the tips. And luckily, Q&A is getting the new normal of events. Almost everyone is implementing Q&A. But the question is how to make it work really well, especially in the virtual setup. So if there is a single most important tip that we can leave with you today, it is this one. Be intentional about the Q&A. As a speaker, the time can fly by so fast. And if you don't proactively think about the Q&A session, you will never really get to it. So make sure you plan it either at the end of the session, implemented in the agenda, or if you have any fireside chats or panel discussions, you can also take questions throughout. As a bonus tip, you can also consider organizing Ask Me Anything sessions. What this means is that you don't have any slides and your expert is just taking questions from the audience during the whole session. And again, a couple of extra tips. You don't have to wait for the event to start. You can start collecting questions in advance, anytime before the event. And when the time for Q&A comes, give people 30 seconds to think of their questions. What this means is, as a presenter, you also have to get comfortable with the silence as people are thinking and typing things down. And obviously, as I mentioned on the previous slide, make time for the actual Q&A. So you know what's coming. As we discussed, now take 30 seconds to think of your questions. As a reminder, you'll see it on the panel on the right-hand side when you click on the Q&A and polls, and let us know what are the questions you would like to discuss. We have a couple of minutes left, so let's take a look. Yuri, do you want to start with the first one?
Absolutely, and thank you so much. And we've got already 4 questions in, and just to follow up what Nadia said, like if you don't have any question yourself, take a look at the ones that have been submitted and upvote some of them that you really like, and we are more than happy to take them. But hopefully we inspired you to ask the questions. If not, then we have to think hard, but hopefully just take a few moments and think of the questions and submit it through. And we can just take a look at the first one over here that you have submitted. Yeah, Nadia, happy to take this one. Cool.
Right, go ahead.
So the question is, what if your company management is afraid of live engagement? What arguments would you give in favor of live engagement? Thank you so much for this one. And this is a super important one. And as I mentioned at the start, we have undergone an incredible transformation as an industry, as companies, and people really need to build up that confidence in order to use the new tools, right? So I would say, start gradually. Start with something simple. Don't overdo it from the get-go. Use just one simple poll to break the ice at the start, or just a feedback to wrap up the session, right? Like just do it gently, like a step by step. Then the second thing would be find an ambassador, somebody who is eager to experiment with something new, right? There's always, and trust us, like we work with a very, very traditional companies, and in every single one of those traditional companies, there is one brave soul that wants to experiment and do something else. And the moment people experience a great and engaging presentation delivered by that brave soul, it's like a snowball effect. Trust us, like people will say like, I love that. Like, I want to try this as well. So the second tip would be like, try to look for the ambassador, for a brave soul to deliver on that. And then the very last thing would be like, and ties with the first point, like make it simple. Don't overdo it. Like as simple as asking people, where are you joining us from? Or how are you doing today can really help people to get used to the tools. So those would be my 3 tips on the first one.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And I also want to tie your response, Juraj, to the second question. And the second question is, how useful do you think it is to engage with your audience before the event? So going back to what Juraj said, if your management is afraid of live engagement, you can also start collecting questions beforehand, right? So for example, at Slido, we ran monthly Ask Me Anything session. And it was monthly before, now it's actually every 2 weeks because we can't see each other. And we collect all these questions in advance. So we open the Q&A and our CEO has the time to go through the questions and prepare accordingly. So it really depends on the format of the session. If you're running a webinar, I would say go for it, collect the questions in advance. If you're running a huge and complex conference, it might be a little bit more complex because you would need to assign the questions to the speaker. So I would say open the Q&A beforehand if you have a one stream or a webinar or a team meeting. When it comes to live polls, you can also use them beforehand to, for example, crowdsource expectations. So you can ask a very simple question. For example, what would you like to learn at the event? And again, you can let people upvote these ideas. And in this way, you can shape the agenda accordingly. And you will make sure that what you talk about is actually what the audience wants to hear. All right, Juraj, do you have a favorite question you would like to pick?
Actually, that I think we are still in the same line of conversation with the third one. So happy to take that one. Thoughts on prepping fake questions for presenters to answer, both to prompt engagement and push specific messages. I'm not going to judge whether it's morally good or bad. I'm going to tell you what it actually does. So as you've just experienced, there were 4 questions submitted before we opened the Q&A. And we started taking those questions, and then more and more came through. And what actually happens is that people really need to switch from the listening mode to the interactive mode, right? So, and these kind of fake questions, if you plant 1 or 2, help people to switch the context from the listening mode, as I said, to the more interactive mode. Like we usually give it as a tip to our event planners, to the clients, just to use 1 or 2 really questions to bridge that kind of an awkward silence and really kick off that discussion and let people to think of the new questions to actually come through. And then what actually happens is that very often you don't even have enough time to cover all those questions. So that would be my answer to this one.
Great, and we have 3 more minutes, so I'm going to try and combine the 2 questions here. So how long should be a virtual session to keep the audience engaged? This is a great question. And what I actually love about this event, Virtual Shakeup, is that none of the session is too long, right? Like it's 30 minutes max. So some of the webinars go even further because sometimes you have a lot of complex information you need to deliver, but don't go over 45 minutes if you can. Like that would be my answer. And if you need to make it longer, make sure you insert those interaction points that we discussed. So that would be a short answer to that. And I'll also take this one, if I may. How do you handle lots of questions? Great question. So what we actually do, I'm going to circle back to what I said about our all hands meetings at Slido. So there's always a newsletter prepared with the unanswered questions. So our management teams sits down and answer those questions in writing, or alternatively, you can also record a video. So, you can, again, get creative. It can be a newsletter, it can be a podcast, it can be a video. If you want to follow up, there's always a way to do it. And then you can, for example, share it on social media as well. We have 1 more minute, so Juraj, pick the last question?
Sure. I'm going to take the most upvoted one, right? Because you voted that you want to hear the answer to this one. And I'm going to combine this top question with another one that just came through, because I think they're in a similar line. What about engaging an older audience? And somebody was also asking about the shy audience. It's a very, very similar, who may not be familiar or comfortable engaging online. And over here, my tip would be, you have to be slightly more patient, but you have to walk them through step by step through the process. Most of the tools are very simple to use, whether it's Slido that just 2 clicks away, or it's a chat that is embedded in a platform. Just make sure that you spend time on explaining where and how to interact with you. So go and just go step by step. Go click on the chat, and this is where you can post your questions, where you can post your comments. This is where you can do X and Y, right? Just go step by step with them. And my tip over here would be like, let them submit, let them try the tool straight away. So let them submit some dummy questions, or let them submit the dummy comments, or even create a small, a simple icebreaker poll just to get them comfortable with interacting. So this would be my tips for engaging older, shyer, or less tech-savvy audiences in general. And we are we are at the end of our journey. We are at the end of our ride, and you know what happens when you are finishing your Uber ride. So before you step out of the car, you're just going to get a notification. Please leave your rating, and we want to ask you to do the same because we are at the end of this ride. So there are just two simple things to fill in. Leave your star rating. How did you like this session that we delivered with Nadia? And just please leave any comments that you have for us, right? Like, what did you like? What could we improve? We always try to work on, we always read them and always try to improve our sessions. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
So
What an amazing presentation. So many great tips there. Talking of tips, just like the Uber driver, if you want to get in touch with Uri or Nadia, you can't give them a tip, but you can always drop them a message on here, Umbrella. So our next session will be in 4 minutes. It'll be on hybrid. So I'm going to talk to 3 of my friends who've run various forms of hybrid events. Don't forget, if you want to have a meeting with people, that's top right on your Umbrella screen. And also we'll continue with all the Slido questions. I can see in the chat as well, some people asking, will these tips and presentations be made available? And they will. All of the videos will be made on demand. To access on-demand content on Umbrella, you need to click the past content. It's not all there yet because we're still streaming, but it'll be there very quickly during the show. So if you wanted to come back later and catch one of these presentations, you need to tick that little box that says past content. But that's it from me. We'll be back in a few minutes talking hybrid.